The station drifted in the black of space, far from any trade route or friendly signal. Its metal skin was old and scarred, and the flicker of its few working lights made it look more like a grave than a home. Inside, the air was cold and dry. The sound of the old life support fans was the only proof the place was still alive. Soraya sat by a narrow window, staring at the stars. Her hands rested on her swollen stomach. The child inside moved sometimes, a reminder that she was not truly alone. But the emptiness around her was louder than any comfort. Her people had sent her here. Not because she had broken a law of theft or murder, but because she had carried life too late. Her people believed late births cursed the bloodline. They had called her selfish for keeping the child. They had called the child a shadow born under dying stars. She had been given one day to gather her things before they placed her on the shuttle. Her mate had stood behind the council, his head bowed, refusing to look at her. She had left with nothing but a small bag, a few ration cubes, and the clothes she wore. Days on the station had turned into weeks. Her water recycler worked, but barely. Her food was almost gone. She counted each cube, each sip, each hour until she might hear the silence break. But nothing came. The distress beacon she had tried to repair had been silent for months. That was why she almost didn't believe it when the sound came. It started as a faint hum. The old docking alarm, dusty and half-broken, began to beep. She froze in her seat. Her mind raced. Pirates, scavengers, bounty hunters. No one came here by accident. Slowly, she pushed herself up, the weight of her child making her steps heavy. She reached the maintenance locker and pulled out her only weapon, a plasma cutter. Its edge glowed faintly blue. Through the fogged glass of the airlock viewport, she saw a shape. A small ship, its hull patched with mismatched metal. A figure in a worn EVA suit stepped onto the docking bridge. The figure moved with steady purpose, not the cautious shuffle of someone afraid. The helmet turned, and for a moment, the reflective visor caught the station light. The figure stopped at the outer hatch. Then came the sound. A knock. Not a bang of force, but a solid, steady knock, 3 times. Her breath caught. She hadn't heard another being knock in months. The figure leaned toward the hatch's comm panel and a voice came through. Rough, deep, and human. You're not alone anymore. Her grip on the plasma cutter tightened. Humans were rare out here. Most kept to their colonies and trade hubs. What would one be doing on a dead station like this? Who are you? She asked into the comm, her voice sharp. A traveler, the voice replied. Ships running low on fuel. Picked up a faint beacon here. Figured someone might need help. She studied the figure's stance. No weapon in hand, no sign of aggression. Still, she didn't move to open the hatch. Trust was a luxury she didn't have. I don't need help, she said. You sound like you do, the human replied, calm. Her heart pounded. The station's walls felt smaller, pressing in. The thought of opening the door to a stranger terrified her, but the thought of going another month without speaking to anyone, that felt worse. She glanced at the empty ration pack on the table, the one she had finished that morning. The human didn't speak again. He simply waited, his helmeted head turned toward the viewport. She stepped closer, peering at the scratches and dents on his suit. He was no soldier. This was the wear of someone who worked hard for survival. Slowly, she reached for the hatch. Control. Her finger hovered over the release button. One press and she would let in not just air from another ship, but the unknown. Danger, perhaps, or something else. Her eyes closed for a heartbeat. She thought of her child, of the cold nights and the silence that had been her only company. She pressed the button. The hatch groaned as it unlocked. The inner door slid open, and the human stepped inside. He moved carefully, removing his helmet with one hand. His face was tired, worn from travel, but his eyes were alive. Name's Daniel, he said simply. Soraya kept the plasma cutter raised. You have one night, she said, and you touch nothing without my permission. Daniel nodded. Fair enough. The door sealed behind him, and for the first time in months, The station was not silent. Daniel didn't move closer. He set his helmet down on the nearest table, then removed a small pack from his back. The sound of his boots on the metal floor echoed in the narrow corridor. Soraya kept the plasma cutter steady, her eyes fixed on him. "I told you," she said. "You can stay one night." He nodded without looking offended. "Understood, but I've got something for you first." From the pack he pulled out a sealed food pack, human rations. He placed it on the table and stepped back. "Figured you might need this more than—" Her eyes darted to the packet. She hadn't tasted anything fresh in weeks. Her stomach tightened at the smell that escaped when she opened it. Savory, warm, real food. She wanted to devour it, but she forced herself to take small bites. She would not let him see how desperate she was. Daniel walked to the control console, glancing at the blinking lights. "This place is barely holding together," he said. "I know," she replied coldly. "Power cells are running low. Oxygen. Scrubbers need work. If you let me, I can fix some of it. In return, I'll have a place to sleep while my ship's fuel cells recharge." She narrowed her eyes. "Why would you help a stranger?" He shrugged. "Because out here sometimes, that's the only way any of us make it." Soraya hesitated. Her people had taught her that outsiders always came with a price. But this human didn't push her for answers, didn't try to take anything. Instead, he pulled out a small set of tools and knelt by the oxygen unit, humming quietly as he worked. She watched him for a long time before speaking again. "You didn't ask why I'm here." "Not my business," he replied. "That's strange," she said. "Most people can't help themselves." Daniel didn't look up. "I figure you'll tell me if you want to." His words unsettled her. It had been a long time since anyone let her keep her own silence. Hours passed as he repaired wiring and replaced filters. The air grew warmer, cleaner. Soraya found herself staring less at the plasma cutter and more at his steady hands. He didn't work like a man doing a favor. He worked like someone who belonged here, fixing what needed fixing. When the repairs were done, he sat at the table across from her. "You've been here a while," he said. She didn't answer. "Your distress beacon's dead. If I hadn't picked up the faint trace, I'd have thought this place was empty." "That's the point," she said. He leaned back. "Hiding from someone?" She looked down at her stomach, then away. "Not hiding. Surviving." Daniel didn't press. He took a sip from his canteen and studied her for a moment. "You've got skill," he said. "I can tell from the way this place is. Still running at all? You could be anywhere else, working, building things, so whatever happened must have been bad." She stood abruptly, her chair scraping the floor. "I don't talk about it." He raised his hands in surrender. "Fair enough." That night, Soraya lay in her bunk, listening to the faint hum of repaired systems. For the first time in months, the station didn't sound like it was dying. She tried to sleep, but dreams came, harsh and bright. She was back on her homeworld, standing before the council. The words came at her like stones. Late birth, forbidden, unfit. Her mate turned his back as the guards led her away. She had screamed, not for herself but for the life inside her. She woke to the sound of clanking metal. Daniel was already awake, working in the maintenance bay. She rose and stepped to the doorway, watching him tighten a bolt on the power coupling. "You work early," she said. "Old habit," he replied. "The sooner I get this place running better, the better we both breathe." She tilted her head. "You plan to leave soon?" He paused, meeting her eyes. "Once my ship's ready, but if you wanted a ride somewhere, maybe I could—" "No," she cut in. "I can't leave." "Can't or won't?" he asked softly. Her jaw tightened. "Both." Daniel studied her for a moment, then nodded. "All right, your choice." But his tone told her he wasn't done asking. The next day, the station was quieter than usual. The repairs Daniel had made hummed softly in the background, steady and calm, but Soraya's mind was far from calm. She moved through her routines, checking the hydro valve, recycling water, cleaning filters. Yet every few minutes her eyes would flick to the maintenance bay where Daniel worked. He hadn't asked again about her past, but his earlier words lingered. Can't or won't. He was waiting for her to answer in her own time. By midday, she brought him a water flask. He took it with a nod of thanks, then kept working on a broken comm panel. After a long silence, she spoke. My people have a law, she said, her voice low. It says no child may be carried past the 27th cycle of a mother's life. They say it weakens the bloodline. They say late births bring misfortune to all. Daniel didn't look up right away. He finished tightening a screw before answering. That's a strange law. It is not strange to them, she said, bitterly. It is sacred. Breaking it is the same as betraying the homeworld. And you? He asked gently. She looked away. I tried to follow it. For years, my mate and I tried to have a child. Nothing worked. Then, when I had almost given up, it happened. I thought it was a blessing. Her voice trembled. The council saw it as a curse. They said I had broken the balance of the stars. They said my child would bring death to our people. My mate. He agreed with them. He stood there and let them send me away. Daniel's jaw tightened. So they threw you here, alone. They called it mercy, she said. Better to live in exile than for both of us to die. She gave a sharp, humorless laugh. But this place, it is just a slower death. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The hum of the machinery filled the gap. Daniel finally set down his tools and turned to face her. Where I come from, he said, children born late aren't cursed. They're often the most cherished. Sometimes they're called miracles. Soraya blinked at him. Miracles? Because they're rare. Because they're worth the wait, he said simply. Her chest felt tight, and she hated that his words made something warm flicker inside her. She had spent months pushing away hope. It was easier to survive without it. But this, human, with his tired eyes and steady hands, was making it harder to stay cold. Daniel didn't push further. He went back to his work, but his presence in the small room felt different now, less like a stranger passing through, more like someone who had chosen to stand beside her. Later that night, as they ate in silence, Soraya asked, Why are you really here? People don't just wander this far from the lanes. He gave a small smile. Cargo salvager. I go where others don't bother to look. Found your station on the edge of my scans. Figured I'd see if it was worth pulling parts from. And now? She asked. Now, he said, it's worth more than parts. The words made her look away quickly, pretending to focus on her food. After the meal, Daniel checked the outer sensors. His expression changed. We've got company, he said. Soraya's stomach dropped. Who? He adjusted the display so she could see. A faint signal was moving on the edge of the moon's shadow. The transponder code was blurred by interference, but she recognized the pattern in the readings instantly. It's a patrol ship, she whispered. Yours? He asked. She nodded, her throat dry. If they find me, they will finish the sentence. Daniel leaned over the controls. Then, we don't let them find you. For the first time since her exile began, someone had said we. The patrol ship's signal grew stronger. Soraya stood frozen, her hands pressed against the console. Daniel's voice broke through her thoughts. How long before they're in range? An hour. Maybe less, she said. If they scan, they'll see the station. If they dock, they'll find me. Then we need to make this place invisible, Daniel replied. He moved quickly, pulling up the power controls. We shut down everything non-essential. Lights, heating, anything that gives off a heat signature. We mask the engines and shield the core. Soraya's instincts screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. That will leave us in the dark, she warned. Better cold than dead, he said. They began working side by side. Daniel climbed into the maintenance shafts, rerouting power from the upper decks. Soraya took the lower compartments, sealing off unused rooms and venting excess heat into the moon's shadow. Every minute felt shorter than the last. When Daniel returned, his hands were blackened with grease. That's most of it, he said. But the oxygen scrubbers still give a small signal. Can you tune them to cycle slower? She nodded and moved to the controls, her fingers moving with the confidence of an engineer who knew every part of the station. It felt strange, working not to fix something, but to hide it. As they worked, Daniel asked, "How far will they go to finish the sentence?" Soraya's throat tightened. "They will not kill me outright. That would be too merciful. They will take the child before it is born." Daniel's eyes darkened. "Not while I'm here." The patrol ship's shadow crept across the moon, its hull glinting faintly in the distant light. Soraya could see it now through the small window, a sleek silver craft built for speed and enforcement. Its engines burned faintly blue, like cold fire. "Do they know exactly where you are?" he asked. "Not yet," she said, "but if they scan the area." Daniel checked his portable scanner. "They're doing a slow sweep that's buying us time." They retreated to the control room, the lights now off, leaving them in near darkness. The hum of the station was quieter, the air cooler. The baby moved inside her as if sensing the tension. Soraya wrapped her arms around herself. "Why are you helping me? You could just leave. Your ship is fueled enough for a short jump." Daniel didn't hesitate. "Because I've seen enough people thrown away for the wrong reasons, and I'm not letting it happen to you." His words settled over her like a shield. For the first time in months, she felt the faint spark of safety. The patrol ship slowed, its light sweeping across the surface of the moon. Soraya's breath caught as the beam passed near the station. "They're close," Daniel whispered. "Too close." They watched as the ship adjusted course, edging toward the station's orbit. A small drone detached from its hull, its engines glowing like a firefly in the dark. "They've sent a probe," Soraya said, her voice tight. "It will find us." Daniel grabbed his toolkit. "Not if I get to it first," she caught his arm. "You can't go out there. The cold will kill you in minutes." "I've worked in worse," he said with a faint smile. "I'll keep my suit's heat low to stay off their sensors. Just keep the airlock ready for me to come back." Without another word, he was gone, stepping into the airlock and sealing the inner hatch. Through the small viewport, Soraya saw him push off into the void, drifting toward the approaching probe. Her heart pounded as she watched the human work in silence, floating in the cold emptiness of space. The probe's lights flickered as he reached it. A minute later, its glow died completely, drifting away into the shadows. Daniel's voice came over the comm. "It's done. I'm coming back." Relief flooded her, but it was mixed with something deeper. An understanding that this human was risking everything for her and her child. When he stepped back through the hatch, Frost clung to the edges of his suit. She helped him remove the helmet, her hands shaking. "You could have died," she said. He smiled faintly. "Yeah, but you're still here. That's what matters." The station stayed dark, cold, and silent. Outside, the patrol ship hovered like a predator circling wounded prey. Soraya and Daniel stood in the control room, barely breathing, watching the faint glow of the ship's thrusters through the viewport. "They're not leaving," Soraya whispered. "They know something's here," Daniel replied quietly. "They just can't see us." The comms panel crackled to life, startling them both. A deep alien voice filled the room. "Unregistered station, respond. Identify yourself." Soraya froze, her own people's language, sharp, formal, and full of authority, stabbed at her ears. Daniel leaned close to her. "Don't answer." "They'll scan if I don't," she said. "They'll scan either way," he countered. "Stay quiet," the voice repeated the command. Then the hum of the patrol ship's scanners filled the silence, a high-pitched pulse that made the metal walls vibrate. Soraya's hands clenched on the console. "They'll pick up the oxygen levels," she whispered. Daniel's mind worked, fast. "Not if we drop them just enough." He reached over her shoulder, adjusting the controls. The scrubbers slowed, and the air grew thinner. It wasn't dangerous, not yet, but Soraya could feel her lungs working harder. The scan pulse faded. For a moment, hope flickered. Then a new sound cut through the darkness, the docking clamps locking into place. "They're coming aboard," she said, her voice tight. Daniel grabbed his toolkit and opened a maintenance hatch near the floor. "Get inside." "What?" "Now," he ordered. "It's narrow, but it runs along the whole deck. They won't see you. Keep moving toward the far end. Stay silent." She hesitated. "What about you?" "I'll stall them," he said. Her breath caught. "Daniel, go," he said firmly. With no time left, she slipped into the maintenance crawl space, pulling the panel shut behind her. The cold metal pressed against her body as she crawled, her breath shallow. From somewhere above, she heard the hiss of the airlock opening. Heavy boots clanged on the deck. Voices spoke in her native tongue, clipped, searching tones. Daniel's voice broke through, calm but firm. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" "You are human," one of the aliens said flatly. "Last I checked," Daniel replied. "This station is unregistered. It is in violation of patrol law. State your purpose." "Refueling," Daniel said easily. "Picked up some salvage parts. Didn't realize the place was claimed." Silence followed, then the sound of footsteps moving through the station. Soraya's heart pounded as they drew closer to her hiding place. She curled tighter, one hand on her stomach, as if shielding the child from sound alone. A boot scraped just above her. She held her breath. Then Daniel spoke again. "If you're looking for something specific, I can save you time. I've been through the place. There's nothing here but rust and bad wiring." Another silence. Then one of the aliens spoke. "Your oxygen readings suggest more than one occupant." Daniel didn't miss a beat. "Faulty system. Been that way since I docked. You're welcome to waste your time proving me right." The footsteps paused. Then came the sound of a comm. Transmission. "No life signs detected beyond human signature. Prepare to depart." The boots retreated. The hiss of the airlock closing followed. Then the low thrum of the patrol ship's engines as it pulled away from the station. Soraya stayed in the crawl space until Daniel's voice called softly, "It's clear." She pushed the panel open and climbed out. Her legs trembled, but not from the cramped space and from the weight of what he'd just risked. "You could have handed me over," she said. He shrugged. "Not my style." Her eyes softened, but her voice was still steady. "Why? You don't know me." "I know enough," he said. "And I'm not leaving you here for them." For a long moment, she just looked at him. The cold walls of the station felt less like a prison and more like a place where something had shifted, where trust had begun to take root. For hours after the patrol ship left, the station felt unnaturally still. The tension in the air was heavy, like the metal walls themselves were holding their breath. Soraya sat at the table, her hands wrapped around a mug of recycled water, staring at nothing. Daniel moved around the room quietly, packing his tools back into his bag. She finally broke the silence. "They'll come back," she said softly. "Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not for weeks, but they will return." "Probably," he agreed. "Which is why you can't stay here." She looked up sharply. "And go where? No human colony will take me. Not with a child they don't understand. My people will hunt me anywhere in their space." "Then we go where neither side cares," Daniel said. "Outer Rim. Deep human territory. Plenty of small settlements where no one asks questions." Her stomach tightened. "Leaving means I'll never see my homeworld again." Daniel met her gaze. "Home is not where you were born, Soraya. It's where you're safe." She looked away. His words were simple, but they struck deep. For months she had clung to the faint hope of returning, of her people changing their minds. But deep down she knew that was a dream that would never come true. "You'd take me?" She asked. "You and the child," he said without hesitation. "I'm not promising luxury, but I can promise safety." The idea felt impossible. Yet in the quiet hum of the station, she realized there was nothing left here worth protecting except the life inside her, and that life would die if she stayed. "What would I have to do?" she asked. "Help me prepare my ship for the jump," he replied. "We'll transfer what supplies you have left. Strip anything useful from this station and be gone before another patrol passes." Her hands tightened around the mug. "When would we leave?" "As soon as you're ready." That night she walked the narrow corridors of the station, touching the walls she had grown to hate and depend on in equal measure. Every dent, every flickering panel, every corner carried the memory of her exile. She paused at the viewport, in her quarters looking out at the stars. "This is not your child's home," she whispered. By morning she stood in the docking bay with Daniel, watching as he loaded the last crate onto his small, weathered ship. "It's not much," he admitted, "but it flies." The inside smelled faintly of oil and metal. The seats were patched, the floor scuffed from years of travel. Yet it felt more alive than the station had ever been. As they sealed the hatch, she glanced back through the small viewing window at the station. Its lights were dim, but she could still see the flicker of the control room where she had spent countless lonely nights. "Will you miss it?" Daniel asked. "No," she said firmly. But in her chest, there was a strange, quiet ache. Not for the place itself, but for the part of herself that had survived there. Daniel powered up the engines. The hum was steady, the vibration running through the seat beneath her. Outside, the station grew smaller, just another shadow among the stars. Soraya rested a hand on her stomach as the ship angled away. She thought of the life ahead. Unknown. Unplanned, but free. Daniel glanced over at her. "We'll find somewhere. A place where no one cares how late a child is born." She nodded slowly. "And you? Why help me?" He gave a faint smile. "Because someone once helped me when they didn't have to. I'm just returning the favor." The jump coordinates loaded, and the stars stretched into streaks of light. The station vanished behind them, left to the silence once more. The jump was rougher than Soraya expected. The stars blurred into streaks, then twisted into the deep swirl of hyperspace. She gripped the armrests, feeling the hum of the engines through her bones. Daniel glanced at her from the pilot's seat. "First jump?" She nodded. "We don't travel like this on my world, only in slow ships between our own stations." "Then hold on. We'll be in human space before you know it." His voice was calm, steady, and it settled her nerves more than the harness straps ever could. Hours passed in the glow of the cockpit. Soraya sat in silence, watching the strange tunnel of light outside. Her child shifted within her, and she rested her hand on her stomach. For the first time, the movement didn't make her feel trapped. It made her feel like she was moving forward. Daniel kept the ship running smoothly, occasionally tapping the controls or checking the navigation display. At one point, he reached into a compartment and pulled out another ration pack, sliding it toward her. "Eat. You'll need your strength when we land." She unwrapped it slowly, the smell warm and familiar now. "Do you always help strangers?" she asked between bites. "Not always," he said, "but I help when it matters." When the jump ended, the stars snapped back into view, brighter, warmer somehow. Ahead lay a scatter of stations and ships, all carrying human transponder codes. Soraya's heart thudded as she saw the largest station come into view, a sprawling structure of silver and gold, its outer rings rotating slowly to create gravity. "That's Haven Port," Daniel said. "It's a trading hub on the edge of human territory. They don't ask many questions as long as you follow the rules." As they approached, the comm crackled to life. A friendly human voice spoke. "Unidentified craft. You are entering Haven. Port approach corridor. State your purpose." Daniel replied easily. "Independent cargo vessel requesting dock and trade access." Docking granted. "Welcome to Haven Port." The ship slid into the docking ring with a smooth hiss. The moment the hatch opened, a wave of warmer, fresher air rolled in, rich with scents of food, metal, and too many people in one place. It was noisy, alive, and nothing like the silence she had left behind. Soraya stepped out slowly, her eyes scanning the bustling walkway. Humans moved everywhere, Traders, workers, children laughing as they darted past. Not a single one looked at her with suspicion. No one stared at her stomach. Daniel led her through the crowd, pointing out the food markets, medical centers, and repair docks. "You can stay on my ship until you find your footing," he said. "Or, if you want, I can help you get your own quarters here." She stopped, looking around at the station's bright lights. "This place, it feels different." "That's because here no one cares where you came from," Daniel said. "They care about who you are now." Her throat tightened. She had spent so long preparing herself for suspicion, for rejection. Yet here, no one even noticed her as anything unusual. Over the next days, Daniel helped her settle in. They traded some of her station salvage for fresh clothes, better food, and a small room near the quieter part of the station. He showed her how to access the local comm network, where to buy supplies, and which areas to avoid after dark. One evening, as they sat together in her small quarters, she said, "I thought my child would be born in a place of shame, but now, maybe it will be born in a place of hope." Daniel smiled. "That's the idea." Weeks later, Soraya stood by the viewport of her new room, cradling her newborn child. The baby's tiny fingers curled around hers, warm and strong. Outside, the stars of human space shone bright and unthreatening. She thought of the cold, silent station she had left behind, of the knock that had changed everything, and of the human who had refused to walk away. When Daniel visited that evening, she handed him the child without hesitation. "This is your family too," she said. He looked down at the small face, then back at her, and nodded. "Then let's make sure it grows up knowing it was never unwanted." The child let out a soft sound, as if agreeing. Soraya smiled, feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time: peace. And somewhere, far behind them, the abandoned station drifted in the dark, empty once more.